Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today we're talking about the deck that is just so good. Honestly, right now, pre-rotation and post-rotation, it is amazing. And honestly, I'm a little worried about what the metagame's going to look like post-rotation, and I don't think I'm alone on this. And we are talking about Dragapult, right? Dragapult EX is currently one of the top decks in the game, looking at Limitless here, and I believe also Play Limitless. Yeah, it's the top deck and it's played in a couple of different ways. You could pair it with Charizard EX, but for the most part, it's played with Dragapult. EX is paired with Dusknoir, and of course you have Dracloak and stuff as well. And Dragapult EX, of course, is a very powerful card in Standard with 2 attacks. Obviously, Jet Headbutt not going to be super good there, but Phantom Dive is, I mean, it's very good, right? For on the stage 2 EX here, you do for Fire Psychic 200 and then put 6 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon in enemy. Like, obviously, 200 is pretty solid. Two-shotting pretty much everything. One-shotting some things, right? One-shotting single prizes, certainly. And Phantom Dive, putting 6 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon in any way you like is definitely something that will chip away at your opponent's Pokemon. When I say chip away, I mean it does quite a bit. It's really rough for a bunch of single prize decks, and also it's pretty. I mean, like against something like say Gholdengo in Standard, right? You do a total of 260, right? So doing a total of 260 is a bunch of damage. You have control over where that damage goes a good amount, and this pairs pretty well with something like Dusknoir, which says that you can put 13 damage counters on one of your Pokemon once in your turn, and then you knock out this Pokemon. Obviously, knock it out isn't very good. Especially post-rotation. If we look pre-rotation, we see that the deck is playing stuff like Iono and Countercatcher, and those cards are good for what I describe as like technically comebacks. But I mean, if you're using Dusknoir, you're in like a better board state, but you're behind on prizes potentially. But Iono and Countercatcher are super good with those. Those are both rotating. If you want to hear my thoughts on that a little more, actually, I've talked about rotation a bunch, including my podcast episode with Con Fossil yesterday, where we talked about the very best cards rotating. And those were, I believe, I think Countercatcher's on it. Countercatcher is very, very good. Iono is also very, very good. And yeah, I mean, these cards, losing them, I guess, is a moderate deal. We'll talk about that. But looking at the current metagame, we can see that, let's pull it up here. If you've been paying attention to the metagame much at all, you know that there's like 4 top decks: Gholdengo EX, Gardevoir EX, Dragapult EX, and Charizard EX. You could like kind of argue the order of them. You could definitely say Dragapult EX is the best deck in the game, but it's these 4 are in the like top tier. I'd say they kind of all share that like top tier there, and of course 3 of those are rotating with rotation in March or April, depending how and where you're playing. Or I guess it's already happened in Japan as well, which we'll take a look at some tournament results. But specifically speaking of tournament results in Japan, looking at the metagame, this is from Pokecat Book, and this is the metagame post rotation currently, or it might be like a day or 2 out of date. I'm not sure, but it's pretty much the current metagame in Japan. Looking at it a little earlier, we saw a handful of top decks. We see Mega Lucario EX here, and I'll talk about the other decks that are doing well in Japan. Also, Mega Starmie EX was doing. Oops, I dragged it wrong. It was doing very well. It's fallen off quite a bit here, as we can see. We see Dragapult EX at 23.9%. Obviously, different tournament environments are going to have like different metagames to to some extent, but this is like a pretty decent representation of what the metagame will look like, and things are getting more fleshed out as time's gone on in Japan, and rotation's been around for a little while now. But Mega Lucario EX is a whole 10% behind it, and then you have like Mario's Grimmsnarl EX a whole another 5% behind that. And then you got like Mega Venusaur, Mega Dancy. Mega Dancy is actually a deck I'm not very familiar with. I'm like loosely familiar with it. But I'm interested in hearing people's thoughts on that deck in the comment section. Tell me if you want me to make a video going over that deck, or like new decks post rotation. It's not like it has like a ton of new cards, but it is a deck that people aren't playing right now. I guess kind of related to Gardevoir there. Then there's Team Rocket's Honchkrow, and also Alakazam as single prizers there. Then we see we got the Cynthia's Garchomp EX deck. That's in some ways similar to Mega like Lucario EX, they use some similar pieces. I've always compared them to each other. I don't know if that's the perfect comparison there. And then you have Enzoric EX with the new Enz Zekrom from Ascended Heroes, which is good. And then you have Mega Starmie EX with the Frostlass line and Team Rockets there. But I mean, Dragapult EX is making more of a higher percentage here than other, which is kind of crazy, I guess, because if you look at Play Limitless, let me pull that up again. Other here is 7th, depending on how you divide things up. But there's like a lot of different decks being counted, right? There's over 100, right? Versus here, there's like 10 decks, right? So there are, if we like divide this up a bit more, other would be pretty small. So anyways, Dragapult EX though is doing like absurdly well, which makes a lot of sense, right? As I said, the current metagame, the top decks Dragapult is, I mean, it's the deck that is doing the best right now. It's not really losing too many pieces, and the other top decks are losing big pieces. So we do need to talk a little bit. Oh, also, this is sometimes people get confused about this. I'm gonna show these deck lists on my video. This deck list here is like an average of all the Dragapult EX decks being played in high level tournaments right now, which again is an average. Of course, it's rounded as well, the card count, so it might not have 60 cards, and also might there might be some things that don't make too much sense, though I think this makes a good amount of sense here. But anyways, obviously you have Dragapult EX, you also have Dracloak, and Dracloak is very powerful. I guess I'll mention Badoo here as well. Badoo, I made a whole video on Badoo a little while ago saying that I think, or not that long ago actually, saying that I think it will get better. Also, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss some of my post-rotation analysis and analysis on other stuff going on in the TCG. But like, I mean, I think Badoo and Dragapult EX and them together are going to be like absurdly good. And that's because Badoo obviously, slows the game down, and Dragapult EX is a deck that like kind of likes to take it a little bit slow. The metagame with rotation is going to slow down, but getting Badoo up quickly isn't going to be an issue. And then you're going to be able to actually, I guess I'll clarify. It'll actually get easier with Pokepad over Nest Ball there, or I guess it's like about as easy, but I think it's a little easier there. But Badoo is a card that's going to slow your opponent down, and then you'll set up behind it and set up your Dracloaks and Dragapult EXs. And Dracloak, of course, has its really nice ability, Recon Directive, letting you draw a card every turn from the choice of 2 from the top of your deck, giving you pretty good resource like access, including because you want to be able to gust. If you're playing things a little slower, you can get more value out of supporters. Get value out of something like, say, Boss's Orders a little bit better than Countercatcher, which, as I said, Countercatcher is rotating. It's a very good card in the deck right now. Boss Orders is also a very good card in the deck right now, but as you're also going to be losing some of the other supporters, specifically Iono, and also Professor's Research, but you're going to be in these slightly longer and grindier games, which are going to work pretty well for the deck, because, you're going to be able to just set up your hand, be able to do the things you want to do. And then, of course, you can also finish things off with Duskthorn, Dusclops to go after their bench Pokemon. I will say I don't think Munkidori works very well within the deck. We'll take a look at a handful of post-rotation decks, but I'm not a fan of... I mean, if you're familiar with my thoughts on the card, I think it's like kind of mediocre. There's a bunch of nuance to the card, but just as like exactly how good the card is, I'd say it's fine. But ultimately, you don't need a Dragapult, right? It's kind of good against Dragapult, ironically. It's not gonna... I mean, I can say it makes the mirror better. Obviously, that doesn't really mean anything, because, it's 50-50. But, like, it allows you to go after decks that, like, it's going to be a little harder to splash Munkidori into decks, but mostly Dragapult. So, that's a little annoying, but it's not too bad losing Luminous there. And that's like a loss I've heard a few people talk about. I don't think it matters much for the deck. And then you'll just be playing more basic energies, and I've mentioned Telepath Psychic Energy a few times on the channel. I will say, if a Psychic Dreepy comes out, I don't remember if I've said this on the channel, but if a Psychic Dreepy comes out, it will, the deck's gonna be, even better. It's gonna be, completely absurdly broken. But without that, I think it's just gonna be very, very powerful, and I don't know if I'd say tier 0 deck. When people refer to tier 0 decks, that's a deck that's, I guess S tier, but like problematic, like problematically good. And Dragapult's also annoying as well, I will say. I mean, I don't mind Dragapult too much, but if you're playing like a silly rogue deck, then Dragapult is pretty rough. And we'll actually talk about how it goes against some of these single price decks that we are seeing in the metagame post rotation. But you do have, the Dusknoir line, which you can counter with Psyduck, and there isn't Klefki if you want to do the counter to the counter there. So that will be shut down a little bit there. Actually, if Dragapult's play a lot, it'll be shut down even more. But your opponent, like there's also Battle Cage. There is also Nighttime Mine. I do think Nighttime Mine is a decent counter to Dragapult, increasing the attack cost of Dragapult, which is like pretty rough to deal with. Though it is a stadium that can get bumped, but same thing with Battle Cage. But anyways, you have the core like pieces of the deck, the obviously Dragapult line, the Dusknoir line, and Badoo, which are like super important. And then in terms of other Pokemon, you're not really losing other Pokemon except for Hawlucha. I will mention you are losing that, which is like a little annoying, but it's a fine piece of the deck. I mean, it can get you some knockouts on. I guess it could get you a knockout on a 3 or on a 210 HP Pokemon, but it's supposed to be here to get knockouts on 70 HP basics from time to time. And then I guess we need to talk about the losses of Iono and Countercatcher. I mentioned Countercatcher obviously being a powerful gusting card. However, you're a deck that's going for a more slower game plan, so then you can play Boss's Orders, more rely on that, and I think that's going to be fine. You could play some other type of catcher card, but I don't think that's good there. Ultimately, I think that playing 4 Boss if you want is fine. I don't know if I do that. I mean, gusting is it's like good just in the TCG in general. It's not because I've been playing a good chunk of Dragapult. It's like important, but it's not the most important thing. All the time you don't need to like have counter catchers. I mean, it is a meaningful loss, but it's not the end of the world. Same thing with Iono. Iono is I will say Iono is like a loss for every deck, or like for the most part, a loss for every deck. I'd say more so than counter catcher, allowing you to be a powerful draw supporter in the early game and being a powerful disruptive supporter in the late game. That being said, you could just play Judge instead, and I think Judge will work fine within this deck. Judge is a card that allows you to shuffle your hand into your deck, or each player to shuffle their hand into their deck and then draw 4. It's not loading. There we go. And yeah, I mean, this is pretty good disruption in the early game. It's like okay disruption in the late game, but in the early game, Judge comboed with Badoo is going to be pretty annoying, slowing your opponent down more guaranteed. And if you're forced to play a little slower because you're losing pieces with rotation, I think Judge will work completely fine with that. I don't think you have to. I think you could go with less disruption, but if you want to replace the items with Judges, I think that's like fine enough there. And then in terms of losing draw supporters, I think you could lean more into Hilda as well. I mentioned Health has Psychic Energy, which I do like. Again, I mentioned it more than it probably deserves, but Hilda is I think pretty decent within the deck. And post rotation, I mean, it's fine supporter. Pre rotation, you can run like higher counts or lower counts of it if you want. I don't think there's really too many decks running it as a one of. I could be wrong. I'm just gonna like pull up a couple of decks here. This one's running it. Oh, it is running as a one of. And then this one, maybe I'm just like wrong on that. This one's running as a 2 of. I know some decks run it with more copies. I actually don't run it at all in my deck. But Hilda, it is a card that allows you to get your evolutions as well. Like, it allows you to get them under item lock, where, as I said, I think Badoo will be a little better. And I guess your energy and your Pokemon under item lock. So it's a nice card. It's like versatile-ish. It's not the most versatile card in the game, but it's pretty good. Specifically with supporters that search Pokemon or search cards in general, I'd say they need to be able to find you a wide variety of things, including Pokemon like that are a draw engine. If they're just a bit of a dead end, setting you up a little bit, but then not helping you too much after that, you could find yourself running out of gas with them in your hand, but I don't think he'll just like that, being able to find Dracloak there to get you a steady stream of resources. Again, it's not like a ton of resources every turn, it's an extra card, I guess 2 if you see 2 cards every turn. But yeah, Hilda, long story short, I think is a nice piece that can step up with the loss of certain supporters for this stack. And then I guess the other card rotating here is going to be Professor Turris scenario, which I'm not worried about really at all there. But then looking at how people are playing it post-rotation, we see, I'll just take a look at these 4 lists here that have won tournaments. Out of the past 25, they've won tournaments. The one that's probably the most interesting is going to be Knocked Out here with the Wellspring Mass Ogre Pontiacs. This one actually doesn't run Sparkling Crystal, it runs Unfair Stamp for Disruption, a very powerful but somewhat situational disruptive slash draw. I mean, not supporter, but it's an A-spec item, which functions kind of like a draw supporter. And then you do a Pokepad. Pokepad allows you to search out your GPs, Dracloaks, Knockdowns, and Hoot Hoots, among other things there. And so being able to use that powerfully is quite good. And I guess I will say as well, if you're looking for these basic EXs, you can't find them with Nest Ball anymore. So then you're reliant on Ultra Ball, and then there is also a Terra Orb, because Ultra Ball is also sometimes finding you your, I mean, it could be finding your Dracloaks or whatever, which you can get off of Pokepad, but you can also get the Dragapult EXs, as well as, I guess, also my Ogre EX off of Terra Orb, so I mentioned that in a card that is going to get better with rotation. But ultimately, I think this build's interesting. I haven't played Dragapult Noctowl really at all. I played it a little bit. I played it some, but I don't know if this is the best way to do it. I think people might be overcomplicating it a little bit, but it definitely can pull off some powerful and pretty difficult to deal with stuff. We have this list here. This one's pretty similar to what lists are looking at like right now in standard. We do see this run running Darkness Energy and Crispin. In some ways, the Darkness enables your Crispin a bit more, which is kind of nice. Also, we are losing Super out if you want to lean more into Crispin. That it could be a bit annoying there. And we also have not Team Rockets. We have Meowth EX, which is a pretty good Pokemon. I'm a little skeptical as to exactly how good it will be. Not like it'll be bad. I do think it is the best card in the set, outside of potentially Pokepad, whether you count that. Pokepad is better, but it depends how you count it. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, that card is interesting, allowing for some more situational supporters, but it is also a pretty substantial liability. And I do think relying on Dracloak and Badoo and then the Dustorn line for some extra, damage there can be enough a lot of the time. Looking at this list here, we see a Togekiss line. I'm going to be completely honest. I just don't really like Togekiss because it's annoying, like Coin Flippy. And we see Psyduck and Shaman, so some counter cards here as well. To stop this bench damage, and as I said, Psyduck is difficult to deal with for Dusknoir, so you're just gonna have to ignore the Dusknoir line when you're playing Dragapult Dusknoir if you run into a Psyduck, and we are losing Hawlucha, which is a bit of a pain for that situation, but overall I think it's not the end of the world, right? You can still attack with Dragapult. That's still gonna be really difficult to deal with. Yeah, this list here as well. This one's running more copies of Brock Scouting, which is a supporter that again, like Hilda, will, it works under item lock there. It's not an item. It doesn't get you items, unlike Arwen, which is a supporter that does not really work under item lock there. Not very well, at least. It kind of works. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is going to allow you to set up in a more, I guess, straightforward way. This deck is, I'd say, more straightforward. Again, I don't like it's kind of leaning this one more into the Monkey Dories. It plays Risky Ruins, so it's trying to get a bit of extra value here out of damage counters, which actually brings me to one of the more interesting decks post rotation. We see the Frostlass decks. We have Manuscript Style EX as well as Mega Starmie EX, and those decks are playing Frostlass, which can chip away at you. I don't think it's too big of a deal. And they will also get caught in the crossfire of people playing Battle Cage as well, though they have more. I mean, specifically, Marnie's has a stadium that's very good for it. The water decks have, Surfing Beaches. I recently made a video ranking the type-specific support cards, and Surfing Beach certainly wasn't that high on the list. But definitely, that deck is interesting, and in some ways is doing similar things to Dragapult. But Dragapult is, I think, a bit more well-rounded and just powerful as well. I think it's just going to be a bit better than those decks, having like a more steady engine there. Then we have Mega Lucario EX. Mega Lucario EX is the deck that I think is pretty interesting here, being able to relatively easily one-shot Dragapult EX, I guess. I don't know if that's a great analysis of it, but it's definitely a card that I'd be, or like a deck I'd be a little worried about. Looking at Japanese tournament results, where are these? I've lost them. Here they are. We see, oh wait, no, Mega Lucario is actually, oh yeah, here's one list. And oh, this is interesting. It's running this Carabank, which seems like kind of bad. I'm not gonna lie, but you have obviously Lunatone Soul Rock. I mean, if you saw the video where I talked about the cards that fighting has, Lunatone Soul Rock is very good. That's not what I covered in the video, but Fighting Gong and Premium Power Pro are both amazing cards, arguably the two best type-specific cards in the game. And yeah, I mean, as I said, they're just kind of amazing. I'm allowing you to do some really powerful things. Premium Power Pro letting you threaten some crazy things. Fighting Gong letting you be able to set up a lot easier as well. With the loss of Nest Ball, this is like objectively better than Nest Ball within this deck here. I suppose except for technically if you want to thin, but it's better realistically. Wait, no, Nest Ball doesn't thin. I was gonna say for Risky Ruins, but that doesn't bypass. Nest Ball doesn't bypass Risky Ruins, or nor does Fighting Gong. But yeah, Wild's Compassion though is interesting as a like healing card. I think if the deck's able to use Mikidori well, like Mario's Grimstone EX, that could be a bit of a pain for Dragapult EX. And that is a way to counter it. Though it's not a great way to counter it. Mikidori, as I said, it's not super powerful in terms of like two Mikidoris would be removing all the bench damage and doing extra damage. I mean, it's like good, right? It's a good chunk of commitment, and you're not like completely negating him. If you are playing a really Mikidori heavy deck, then I think that is good against Dragapult. But is it enough? I'm really not sure. I guess one thing, speaking of cards like this, Energy Disruption is interesting against them. Crush Cameras could be a good card. Oh, I will mention with Dragapult EX as well, dropping your special energies is good because there's special energy counters in the game. If people aren't playing them, there's not really any downside. Again, I've talked about Telepath, Psychic. You obviously have new upper energy as well. Hilda being able to search that is like a reason why it's good. I didn't say that, but that's like very important to the deck. Ultimately, I think the cards that it has in the deck are just super powerful. It's a deck that can use a bunch of good cards. It's a deck that can use them all well. And there are a lot of decks, as in every deck that can't deal with them super well. You need to kind of set up before they but do lock you, which is like the whole game, or not the whole game, but like the whole setup portion of the game for the most part. You to be able to deal with the Dragapult that's set up because it's not that hard to set up. And yeah, I mean the deck, I mean it's good, right? It's good in standard right now. It's been good more or less since it's come out. And I think it's going to be even better post rotation with a lot of other powerful decks leaving the format. But tell me down below in the comment section what your thoughts are on Dragapult post rotation. Am I exaggerating? Is it not as good as it looks here, or am I underrating it? Is it actually going to be like absurdly broken? I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I will say I'm not like I don't know. I'm not really. I mean, I think Dragapult can do some fun things. I'm not. I like to see Dragapult, fall off a little, or I guess the meta be interesting. I was really excited for Mega Starmie. Unfortunately, it looks like that deck just isn't super good to this point. I think it's gonna be. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. It kind of reminds me, honestly, of Mega Absol. I think Mega Absol wasn't played in Japan very much, but in some ways, a deck kind of coming out of nowhere ish, but also being like a little mediocre, right? I mean, Mega Absol in standard right now it's okay, right? It can do some like decent stuff, but ultimately, oh, I guess I didn't mention this either. There's single prize stacks like Alakazam and Team Rockets. Specifically, Alakazam kind of gets picked apart by Dragapult. Like Alakazam theoretically is in a good spot because Iono's rotating, but I mean, what do you do against Dragapult, right? You probably just like lose, right? Realistically, that's the answer there. Unfortunately, okay, this is not what I was expecting. Alakazam Dragapult. I would not personally play this. But yeah, then you have like Alakazam's gonna be running really high counts of Allocates, like 4 here. We see an enhanced hammer, useful for the special energies that counter it, but also useful against Dragapult. It's getting Telepath Psychic Energy, which is quite good for the deck. Overall, it seems nice, but you kind of, I don't know, you can one-shot one Dragapult EX with a Liz Clefairy EX with a Wondrous Patch. So that is like doable, but that's not really going to be winning you the game. And deck, like Team Rocket's Honchkrow as well. If I can find it, here it is. It's it's okay. I mean, it's not the most powerful deck. You'll kind of get picked apart. You're not running Psyduck, so there are just a lot of decks that can't deal with it super well. But tell me in the comment section, as I said, what your thoughts are on this. But I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that good stuff. And as Osmond said, see you in the next video.